Hi, I'm Chao-Wei Hwang from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and Frederick Health Hospital. Today we're going to talk about how to do the double kissing crush or DK crush bifurcation stenting technique. This is perhaps one of the most commonly used bifurcation stenting techniques, especially for larger vessels. The patient is a 35-year-old man with a premature CAD. He had non-STEMI 2 years ago and underwent PCI of his diagonal branch. He came to the ED after developing chest pain at a shooting range. His ECG was benign, but he soon ruled in for another non-STEMI with his high sensitivity troponin rising to 896.4 nanograms per liter. So on Cath, both the RCA and circumflex had only mild disease. The LED is shown. You can see that the stent in the diagonal branch is now subtotally occluded, and that was clearly the culprit. There is also disease at the bifurcation with the LED. And initially I was hoping that the LED stenosis would not be hemodynamically significant, but unfortunately FFR of the LED was significant at 0.75. The LED was easy to wire. We took the FFR wire out and a BMW wire easily went in. The diagonal, though, was difficult. A Pro Water would not go anywhere, but a Pilot 50 eventually negotiated itself across the stenosis. I dilated the diagonal with a 2.0 by 12 millimeter balloon to restore flow. His chest pain went away. This is what we have after dilating the diagonal branch. It looks like a Medina 011 bifurcation stenosis. So how should we deal with this? So I thought briefly about provisional stenting, which is by far the most common way to deal with bifurcations. That means that you just stent the LED and then only stent the diagonal later if needed. But I did not think that provisional stenting would work here. The diagonal has severe osteal disease and is probably already dissected, and it would almost certainly go down unless it was restented. We had to use a non-provisional two-stent strategy. In other words, go in with the intention of stenting both the diagonal and the LED. So here are the most common bifurcation stenting techniques, and each has advantages and drawbacks. T-stenting is the easiest bifurcation technique and can be used as a provisional technique, i.e. stent the main branch first and then stent the diagonal, the side branch if needed, or as a non-provisional technique, i.e. stent the side branch first and then stent the main branch. However, in T-stenting, unless the side branch takes off at close to 90 degrees from the main branch, the ostium of the side branch will often will just not be covered. Next, there is T-end protrusion, or TAP. TAP is a modification of T-stenting that provides better coverage of the bifurcation. It's also my favorite bifurcation technique because it is usually quick and easy. TAP does leave a small neocarina behind, so it is usually best suited for larger bifurcation angles and smaller side branches. TAP is primarily a provisional stenting technique. There is a non-provisional version of TAP, which as well, in which you essentially treat the side branch as the continuation of the main branch, and treat the distal main branch as the side branch. This is known as reverse TAP, but it is less commonly done. I've done a few videos on how to do TAP, so feel free to check them out. Next up, there is the culotte technique. Culotte works well for all bifurcation angles, but the side branch must be comparable in size to the main branch for culotte to work. Culotte has a couple of drawbacks. First, it is the only technique in which you will temporarily lose wire access to the main branch. And second, it will leave behind 2 layers of stents in the proximal part of the main branch. And then there is the crush technique. Crush has several different variations. The most common variation is the double kissing crush technique, or DK crush. DK crush is very well studied, but the technique will leave behind up to 3 layers of crushed stent material at the bifurcation. And rewiring and passing equipment into the side branch can be difficult, especially if the vessels are smaller. And so for these reasons, I'm actually not a huge fan of crush techniques, and I generally use crush only in larger vessels, such as the left main or proximal LAD. In the left main bifurcation, there are studies that suggest that DK crush is superior to culotte. I should also mention simultaneous kissing stents. I don't show that here, but simultaneous kissing stents is usually only used in an emergency, mostly because it leaves behind a very large metal neocarina that makes future PCI procedures extremely challenging or nearly impossible. All right, so which non-provisional strategy should we use for our patient? The bifurcation angle here is quite acute. So T-stenting is not an option, and it's not great for reverse tap either. The LAD also appears to be significantly larger than the diagonal, so culotte probably won't work very well. So that leaves a DK crush, and that's what we decided to do. So in DK crush, as in all non-provisional bifurcation stenting, the first step is to wire both branches. In our case, we've already done that steps. A few tips. Sometimes wiring the side branch can be tough. It certainly was difficult for us in this case. We had to reach for a Pilot 50, a hydrophilic wire. If that didn't work, typically I would try a dual lumen catheter such as a Suzuki or an angled microcatheter. I will generally reach for Supercross 120. I found that the 120-degree version usually works better than the 90, and the 45-degree version has almost never worked for me. So in step 2, you pre-dilate both branches. In our case, I dilated the diagonal branch with a 2.5 by 15 millimeter balloon. And you want to do this well. It will make your life easier. And notice that I protruded my diagonal balloon into the LAD to make sure I catch the ostium of the diagonal. I'm really not worried about causing a dissection here, since I have wire access to both branches, and also since my plan is already to stent both vessels anyway. And here we are pre-dilating the LAD with a 3.5 by 15 millimeter balloon. Again, really prep the vessel. I will also often do kissing inflations with the pre-dilation balloons. And notice how I left the diagonal balloon in place to do just that. I found that this helps prepare the bifurcation more nicely and will make delivery of stents easier later on. Okay, so now we are ready to stent the side branch. I generally like to place the side branch stent so that it protrudes 2 to 3 millimeters into the main branch. You don't want to protrude the stent too much because that will result in too much crushed stent material in the main branch. But you don't want to protrude the stent too little either. And this is because once the side branch stent gets crushed, that stent becomes bent at the ostium of the side branch, and this will leave the distal part of the side branch ostium uncovered. And protruding the side branch stent by 2 to 3 millimeters into the main branch helps to reduce this effect. You'll also notice that I have an uninflated balloon in the main branch. That's actually the most important thing to remember here. Make sure that you pre-position your crushing balloon in the main branch before you deploy the stent in the side branch. I cannot overemphasize how important this is. If you don't do this, you'll be hosed. It will be extremely difficult to pass the balloon into the main branch once your side branch stent is deployed, and you'll only make this mistake once. Once your main branch balloon is in place and you're happy with the position of your side branch stent, go ahead and deploy the side branch stent. After that, make sure you post-dilate the stent nicely and make sure the side branch looks good before moving on to the next step. I also like to flare the proximal part of the side branch stent. You do this by positioning your post-dilating balloon so that part of it protrudes proximal to the stent. I find that this helps to ensure that the distal part of the side branch ostium stays covered after the side branch stent is crushed and becomes bent. Okay, so now we're ready to crush the side branch stent. We crushed the side branch stent with a 4.0 by 15 millimeter NC balloon that we had pre-positioned in the LED. You really want to make sure the stent is well crushed. Use high pressure inflations. And I found that it's okay to leave the side branch wire in place. It's actually rare for it to get trapped at this stage. Okay, so what if you forgot the most important step to pre-position your NC balloon in the main branch before deploying the stent in the side branch? Well, I'm sure you'll be uttering a few choice four-letter words in this situation, but the first thing that you could do is you could get lucky and just try to pass your NC balloon. That it could simply just cross into the main branch anyway. If not, you can try to partially crush the side branch stent with a smaller compliant balloon first and gradually upsize until the larger NC balloon can cross for the final crush. If that doesn't work, you can convert to a culotte technique. In this case, you'll need to dilate the proximal part of the side branch stent even more to oppose it to the main branch vessel wall, and then rewire the main branch through the side branch stent cell. You can watch my culotte videos to learn more about how to do the culotte technique. All right, so after you've nicely crushed the side branch stent, you're ready to rewire the side branch through the crushed side branch stent cell. Ideally, if you can, cross into the side branch through a more proximal cell. This will make passing balloons easier later. I must say that rewiring the side branch through a crushed stent can be quite difficult, and this is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of crush techniques. But again, if you're having trouble, try using hydrophilic wires, angled microcatheters, or a dual lumen catheter. Sometimes the wire could be getting stuck in a proximal stent strut if you haven't fully crushed the stent. So IVUS and OCT can help here. You may need to crush the side branch stent even more. Once you've rewired the side branch, you then do the first kissing balloon inflation of the double kissing crush technique. In our case, we use a 2.5 millimeter NC balloon in the diagonal and a 3.5 millimeter NC balloon in the LAD. I will usually sequentially dilate the side branch and main branch before doing the kiss. Passing the balloon into the side branch can be as tough as trying to wire it, sometimes even tougher. If you're having trouble, start with smaller compliant balloons and then serially dilate up. But remember, never dilate the side branch stent without having another balloon pre-positioned in the main branch first. Because anytime you dilate a side branch stent, its strut could become bent and come sticking out into the main branch, and that would make crossing back into the main branch with the balloon difficult or impossible. Okay, now we're ready to stent the main branch. I usually position my main branch stent so that it starts at least 8 millimeters proximal to the bifurcation. This is to allow for pot inflation later on, since the shortest balloons that we have, at least in the United States, are 6 or 8 millimeters. In our case, I deployed a 4.0 by 28 millimeter DES in the LED, and I found that it's okay to leave the side branch wire in place here during main branch stent deployment, but I will usually pull it back a little bit. I do usually prefer to remove the side branch wire before post-dilating the main branch stent. After the main branch stent is deployed, make sure you're post-dilated very well before attempting to recross into the side branch. In our case, I used a 4.0 and 4.5 millimeter NC balloon for post-dilation, and notice how our side branch wire is now pulled back proximal to the stents. You really want to make sure the main branch stent is well expanded and opposed to the vessel wall. This helps reduce the chance that your side branch wire could go under a stent strut. Sometimes I will use OCT and IVUS to help confirm. Next, rewire the side branch again. Again, this could be very difficult to do, and now you have to do it through 3 layers of stent material. As before, hydrophilic wires, angled microcatheters, or a dual lumen microcatheter can help. And if you keep getting stuck, it could be that your main branch stent is not yet completely opposed, and you might need to post-dilate it some more. All right, once you've got your wire down the side branch again, you're ready to do the second kissing balloon inflation of the double kissing crush technique. In our case, we use a 2.5 millimeter NC balloon in a diagonal and a 3.5 millimeter, I'm sorry, a 4.0 millimeter NC balloon in the LAD. Again, I usually sequentially dilate the side branch and main branch before doing the kiss. We talked about this earlier, but passing an NC balloon into the side branch can be rough. If you're having trouble, start with smaller compliant balloons and serially dilate up. But again, remember to never dilate any side branch stent without having another balloon already pre-positioned in a main branch. You may have trouble doing it if you don't have a pre-positioned balloon already there. Next, we post-dilated the proximal part of the bifurcation using a 4.5 by 8 millimeter balloon. This is known as POT, or the proximal optimization technique, and it's done to ensure that the proximal part of the stent is rounded up again in shape and well opposed to the vessel wall. And this is especially important to do if you don't routinely do intravascular imaging to check your work. A quick note is that you could use Finet's law to size your pot balloon. I've done another video about this. In this case, the distal main branch was 4.0 millimeter and the side branch was 2.5 millimeter. So by Finet's law, the proximal main branch should be 4.4 millimeters in diameter. So we used a 4.5 millimeter balloon to do the pot. Finally, I generally do intravascular imaging whenever possible to make sure everything looks good. In this case, we did IVUS, and it showed good stent expansion and apposition. And here is the final angiographic result, which we thought looked quite satisfactory. The patient did well and went home the next day. He had a non-STEMI, so we recommended at least 1 year of DAPT. But for complex bifurcation stenting, I will generally recommend at least 1 year of DAPT, even for non-ACS patients. All right, take-home messages. We talked about how to perform the DK crush bifurcation technique. DK crush is a very commonly used bifurcation technique, which is suitable for all bifurcation geometries. And unlike culotte, you never lose wire access in the main branch, and there is evidence that DK crush is superior to culotte at the left main bifurcation. However, DK crush can sometimes be difficult to do, and crossing back into the side branch through crushed stent material can be quite difficult. And I've never really liked the idea of leaving a three-layer nidus of crushed stent material at the bifurcation. So I generally only use a DK crush in the left main or in larger vessels, such as the proximal LAD. And finally, after complex bifurcation stenting, I will usually recommend a longer-term DAPT for both ACS and non-ACS patients. Thank you for watching.